One of the most loyal and fascinating Death Eaters in my opinion is Barty Crouch Jr. They touched on his character a bit in the movies, but it didn't even come close to doing his character justice. Although David Tennant, who I'm a big fan of for playing the 10th Doctor and more recently playing Kilgrave in Jessica Jones, gave a phenomenal performance in Goblet of Fire.
I'll be welcomed back like a hero.
In this video, I'm going to explain Barty Crouch Jr.'s entire life story, starting from his childhood to his final confrontation with the Dementors. Barty Crouch Jr. was born into the pureblood Crouch family. His father was a man named Barty Crouch, who he was named after, and his mother, Mrs. Crouch, was described as a wispy-looking witch who dearly loved her son. While he was growing up, his father was obsessed with his job at the Ministry of Magic and his pursuit of catching dark wizards as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, along with building up a good reputation to become Minister for Magic one day. He was very well respected, and many people believed that he would one day be Minister for Magic. Because of the job, Barty Sr. didn't pay much attention to his son, which may have had an influence on Barty Jr.'s choices later in life. Barty Jr. grew up and eventually went to school. Little is known about his schooling, but it is known that he received 12 OWLs, so he was a good student. If we were to take a guess as to what house he was in, I think it would be a fair bet to say that he was in Slytherin, because he possessed many qualities that Slytherin thought so important, and especially because he was from a pureblood family, which is the most important quality that Slytherin wanted in his students. Barty Jr. joined Voldemort in his late teens, and got his official Death Eater mark. When Voldemort fell at the hands of Harry Potter, Barty Jr. and 3 others, Bellatrix Lestrange, Sebastian Lestrange, and Rodolphus, escaped capture from the Ministry for some time. In that time, the 4 went after Frank Longbottom, an Auror or a Dark Wizard Catcher who was also in the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's alliance to fight Voldemort and his Death Eaters. They tortured him, thinking that he had information on the whereabouts of Voldemort and what happened to their master. When he refused to talk, they tortured his wife, Alice Longbottom. Both were tortured so severely that they were tortured into insanity, making them essentially like vegetables. This was especially tragic because they had a young son named Neville Longbottom, who would grow up not knowing what his parents really were like before they were tortured. The Longbottoms were very popular, and many people were extremely upset at the situation, and even cheered when the 4 were sentenced to life in Azkaban. The trial in itself was a big ordeal. Barty Crouch Sr. had made it his life's work to lock up dark wizards and to build up a good reputation for becoming Minister for Magic. All of that changed during this trial, however, when his reputation was tarnished as his son, a supposed dark wizard, stood before him, and he was described as a boy in his late teens who looked nothing short of petrified. Hoping to keep his reputation intact, he treated his son like any other dark wizard. He ignored his son's pleas as his wife and mother to his son sat in the stands crying. "Father, I didn't, I swear it, Father. Don't send me back to the Dementors." When Barty Sr. asked the jury to decide, it was a unanimous decision, and every member raised their hands. Barty Jr. then cried out to his mother, "No! Mother, no! I didn't do it! I didn't do it! I didn't know! Don't send me there! Don't let him!" Barty Jr. was trying to fight the Dementors and yelled out one more time to his father, "I'm your son!
You are no son of mine.
Take them away, and may they rot there." These words made Mrs. Crouch give a gasp and faint. The first few days in Azkaban, Barty Jr. screamed for his mother, but eventually he stopped due to the Dementors' depressive influence. Barty Jr. was already in poor health when he got there, according to Sirius Black, and his time in there with the Dementors made his health even poorer. After this dramatic showing and how weak and scared he seemed, you would think that Barty Jr. really was innocent. But in reality, he was one of Voldemort's most loyal followers. After about a year of Barty Jr. being locked up, his mother was dying, and she asked Barty Sr. to save their son as a last favor to her. Barty Jr. later said that the reason why he did this was because he loved her as he had never loved me. Mr. and Mrs. Crouch went to visit Barty Jr. in Azkaban, and gave him a draft of Polyjuice Potion containing his mother's hair. Then Mrs. Crouch took a draft of Polyjuice Potion with her son's hair in it, and they switched places. They got away with it because the Dementors are blind, and they sensed one healthy and one dying person entering, and felt one healthy and one dying person leaving. Mrs. Crouch died shortly after the switch took place. She was careful to drink the Polyjuice Potion until the very end. She was buried with her son's name and appearance, and everyone believed that Barty Crouch Jr. was dead. Barty Sr. then staged Mrs. Crouch's death in a quiet, private funeral, but the grave was actually empty. The Crouches, being a pureblood family, had a house elf named Winky, who nursed Barty Jr. back to health. Barty Sr. used the Imperious Curse on his son, a curse that gives you control over the person, making them do whatever you want. The Imperious Curse was used to subdue Barty Jr. and to keep him under control. Barty Jr. was forced to wear an invisibility cloak night and day, and was always with Winky, who was his keeper and caretaker. Winky pitied Barty Jr. and persuaded Barty Sr. to give his son occasional treats and rewards for his good behavior. As Barty Jr. got stronger and stronger, he started to think about finding his master and to help return him to power. One day, a woman named Bertha Jorkins, who worked for Barty Sr. in the Ministry of Magic, came to the house with papers for Barty Sr. to sign. Winky told her that Mr. Crouch wasn't there, and went back to Barty Jr. Bertha heard Winky talking to someone, and she went to investigate, and discovered Barty Jr., who had supposedly died in Azkaban years ago. Barty Sr. covered it up by putting a very powerful memory charm on her to make her forget what she had seen, but he made it too powerful, and it ended up damaging her memory permanently, making Bertha have a reputation of being rather slow. Winky talked to Barty Sr. about allowing Barty Jr. to go to the Quidditch World Cup, and it took months of persuading, but eventually he agreed. It was the first time that he had left the house in years, and he loved Quidditch as a boy, so this was a big deal. He had to go in the invisibility cloak, and Winky and Barty Jr. went to the top box where Harry and his friends were as well. Winky told everyone that she was saving the seat next to her for Barty Sr., but really, Barty Jr. was sitting there under the invisibility cloak, making it look like the seat was empty. Unknown to both Barty Sr. and Winky, Barty Jr. was growing stronger and becoming more and more like himself, and when he was in the box at the World Cup, he awoke and he said it was like awakening from a deep sleep. While in the box at the World Cup, he saw Harry's wand sticking out of his pocket, so he took it. He had not been allowed to have a wand since before he went to Azkaban. Winky didn't see this because she was afraid of heights, and her face was buried in her hands. After the game, Winky and Barty Jr. went back to the tent, and then they heard a group of Death Eaters causing a huge scene and torturing the Muggle caretaker who owned the lands. These were the Death Eaters that escaped going to Azkaban, and that Barty Jr. thought were unloyal to the Dark Lord. He wanted to punish them for giving up on their master, so he cast the dark mark in the sky to scare them. Ministry agents came to the scene of the crime where the mark was cast, and standing there out in the open was Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and Winky and Barty Jr. hidden behind bushes, Barty Jr. still in his invisibility cloak. The Ministry agents shot stunning spells at Harry, Ron, and Hermione, some of which were shot into the bushes, where Barty Jr. and Winky were stunned. Amos Diggory went into the bushes and saw only Winky because Barty Jr. was still under the invisibility cloak. Barty Sr. waited for the other Ministry agents to leave, and when they did, he went to look for his son, where they had found Winky. He found him and put the Imperious Curse back on him. Barty Sr. fired Winky publicly after she had failed him, and also he had to do something so his reputation wouldn't be ruined any more than it already was. It was just Barty Sr. and Barty Jr. after that. One night, a little bit after the Quidditch World Cup, Voldemort came to the Crouch House in the arms of Peter Pettigrew after he had found out that Barty Jr. was still alive. He found this out by torturing Bertha Jorkins and getting through the memory charms that Barty Sr. had put on her. And she told Voldemort all about Barty Jr. being alive, and he found out that Alistair or Mad-Eye Moody was teaching at Hogwarts, and that the Triwizard Tournament was taking place that year at Hogwarts. Voldemort put Barty Sr. under the Imperious Curse, which was a great delight to Barty Jr. Now my father was the one imprisoned, controlled. Voldemort made Barty Sr. act natural and go about his ministry business as usual and forced him to free his son. Voldemort then asked Barty Jr. if he was willing to risk everything for him, and Barty Jr. did not hesitate to say yes. Voldemort devised a plan from the information that he had gotten from Bertha Jorkins, where he relied on Barty Jr. being stationed at Hogwarts all year. To make sure that this would happen, Peter Pettigrew and Barty Jr. prepared Polyjuice Potion beforehand and went to Moody's house. And although Moody put up a good fight, they were able to subdue him and lock him in his own trunk. They took some of his hair and added it to the potion. Then they took his fake leg and his fake magical eye, and Barty Jr. became Mad-Eye Moody. Arthur Weasley came to the scene of the crime after the Muggle neighbors heard the disturbance and called the Muggle police. Barty Jr. disguised as Moody told Arthur that he had hurt someone, and he shot spells all around trying to hit the intruder, and everyone just thought that Moody was being his normal paranoid self after so many years of fighting dark wizards. Barty Jr. then packed everything, including the trunk with the real Mad-Eye in it, and went to teach at Hogwarts. Barty Jr. questioned the real Mad-Eye to find out all about his past and learn his habits so that he could successfully fool everyone, including Dumbledore, a longtime friend of Moody's. When questioning him, he found out that Moody only drinks out of a hip flask because he's paranoid after being an Auror for so long that someone will poison his drink. So Barty Jr. used that flask to put the Polyjuice Potion in to ensure he would never turn back into his normal self and take the Polyjuice Potion every hour.
What side he's drinking, do you suppose? I dunno, but I don't think it's pumpkin juice.
He kept the real Moody alive so he could take chunks of his hair to put in the polyjuice potion. When he ran out of the potion, he stole the ingredients to make it from Snape's office. One night, Harry almost discovered his secret through the Marauder's map. He thought he saw Barty Sr. in Snape's office, when Barty Jr. was stealing ingredients for the polyjuice potion. Because they had the same name, Harry just assumed it was Barty Sr. and not his son. Barty Jr. used his authority as Harry's teacher to take the map from him to ensure that his cover wouldn't be blown. Part of the plan that Voldemort made was to make Harry play in the Triwizard Tournament, so Moody put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire under a different school than the three competing, ensuring that he would be picked. Throughout the school year, he fought off anyone that could threaten to hurt Harry, because he knew his master needed him in good health.
Pathetic. Oh no, you don't, Sonny!
For the first task of the Triwizard Tournament, he nudged Hagrid to show Harry the dragons to help Harry be prepared for the first task. He then made Harry realize that the only way he would be able to beat the dragon was if he flew on the broomstick, which ensured Harry's victory in the first task. When the second task came, he gave Neville a book on plants to show Harry gillyweed, which is a way that he could breathe underwater for a long period of time, which he had to do for this task. Unfortunately, he didn't take into account Harry not asking everyone he knew for help. You have a streak of pride and independence that could have ruined all. So Harry didn't ask Neville, as Barty Jr. had planned. For his backup plan, he made Dobby the house elf overhear his conversation with McGonagall about gillyweed to ensure that Dobby would hear it, get some from Snape's office, and give it to Harry before the task. And once again, Harry finished the task because of Barty Jr.'s help. While Barty Jr. was at Hogwarts, Pettigrew returned to care for Voldemort and watch over Barty Sr., who was still under the Imperius Curse. After a while though, Barty Sr. began to fight the Imperius Curse just like Barty Jr. did, and Voldemort decided it was no longer safe for him to leave the house. So he forced Barty Sr. to write letters to the Ministry and say that he was ill, and Peter would make sure that he remained at the house. Pettigrew didn't do his job very well though, and Barty Sr. escaped, and he was heading to Hogwarts to tell Dumbledore everything, including him helping his son escape Azkaban. Voldemort sent word to Barty Jr. and told him to stop his father at all costs, so he waited and watched, using the Marauder's map that he had taken from Harry. When he finally saw his father on the grounds, he put on an invisibility cloak and went toward him. He found him on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, but he couldn't do anything to him because Harry and Victor Crumb were there, and he knew Voldemort needed Harry unhurt, and he didn't see a way stopping his father without hurting Harry. Fortunately, Harry ran back to the castle to get Dumbledore, and Barty Jr. took advantage of this, and he stunned Crumb and killed his father. He then dragged his father's body into the forest and covered him up with the invisibility cloak that he had worn out. When Dumbledore came out with Harry, Barty Jr. doubled back and acted like he had just gotten there, and Dumbledore told Barty Jr., who he still thought was Mad-Eye Moody, to go find Barty Sr. Barty Jr. went back to the body, and he transfigured it into a bone, and he buried it in front of Hagrid's cabin. He then told Dumbledore that he couldn't find the body anywhere. For the third task of the tournament, he offered to carry the Triwizard Cup into the maze before dinner, and he turned it into a port key, so that when Harry touched it, it would take him directly to Voldemort, which would finish their plan to bring Voldemort back to full strength. He used his fake magical eye that he had stolen from the real Moody, which could see through things, so he used it to see through the hedges, and cursed many obstacles out of Harry's way. He went after the other champions that Harry was competing against, stunning Fleur and putting the Imperius Curse on Crumb so that he would finish off Cedric and lead Harry's path to the cup clear. Harry touched the cup, and Barty Jr. had done his part of the plan perfectly. When he felt Voldemort call all of his Death Eaters, he knew that his master was back to full power. He didn't think that Harry was coming back because he thought Voldemort would kill him, but when Harry did come back after Voldemort failed, he took Harry away from the stadium. He and Harry talked in his office, and he slowly started to blow his cover when he said, "The Dark Lord and I have much in common. Both of us, for instance, had very disappointing fathers. Very disappointing indeed. Both of us suffered the indignity, Harry, of being named after those fathers. And both of us have the pleasure, the very great pleasure, of killing our fathers to ensure the continued rise of the Dark Order."
Imagine how he will reward me when he learns that I have once and for all silenced the great Harry Potter.
Right before Moody was about to kill Harry, Dumbledore burst in and stopped him. He said he knew it wasn't the real Moody because the real Moody would not have taken you away from my sight after what happened tonight. The moment he took you, I knew, and I followed him. Barty Jr. turned back into himself after not taking the Polyjuice Potion, and Dumbledore then forced him to tell the truth about what happened. Barty Jr. told him about how he escaped Azkaban, the plan he had with Voldemort, and then he smiled and said,
He's back. Lord Voldemort has returned.
Barty Jr. was all the evidence that they needed to confirm that Voldemort had returned. All that they had to do was take him into custody and have him testify. Unfortunately, the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge, brought a Dementor with him for his own protection. And when they got to Barty Jr., the Dementor got carried away and gave him the Dementor's kiss. This means that he took Barty Jr.'s soul, making him completely useless and like a vegetable. This meant that he couldn't testify. Barty Crouch Jr. suffered a fate worse than death, ending the epic story of Voldemort's most loyal follower.